Here are 14 sneaky chess traps that will make your opponents frustrated. These amazing chess traps will win you games and make your opponents cry. So let's get started. Let's start with chess trap number 1. Push your pawn to e4. Classic, clean, and full of purpose. You're taking control of the center, exactly where every battle begins. Black responds with pawn to d5, challenging the center right away. Good, let them come forward. Now bring out your knight to f3. Simple, but critical and quietly preparing your attack. Black takes the bait, pawn captures e4. Let it go. This isn't about that pawn. Instead, jump your knight to g5. Bold. Yes, risky? Only if they know what you're doing. Most don't. Black plays bishop to f5, thinking they're developing. They're blind to what's building. Now slide your bishop to c4. Look. Closely. It's eyeing. f7. That's the softest square in Black's camp. Black responds with knight to h6, trying to kick you off course. But that knight, it just opened the door. Now move your queen to h5. No mercy here. You're threatening check, and the pressure's mounting. Black panics and plays pawn to g6, pushing your queen away. Or so they think. Pull your queen back to e2. Slow, subtle, but it's the quiet before the storm. Black continues. Knight to c6. They think they're safe. They think they're fine. Now strike. Knight takes e4. Black plays knight to d4. Hungry for control, attacking the queen, and potentially forking the king and rook. But they don't see the threat breathing down their neck. Now deliver it. Knight to f6. Checkmate. The king can't run. It can't hide. And no one's coming to save it. Chess trap number 2, the King's Gambit ambush. Let me show you a wild one. A trap so sharp it turns Black's confidence into panic. Fast. Start with pawn to e4. Clean, confident. You're claiming the center, like every king should. Black answers with pawn to e5. Standard stuff. Let them feel comfortable. Now it gets bold. Throw down pawn to f4. That's the King's Gambit. You're saying, take this pawn. I dare you. Black accepts. Pawn captures f4. Let them feel greedy. They think they're winning already. Bring out your knight to f3. You're not backing down. You're setting the stage. Black pushes pawn to g5, thinking they're building a wall. But walls don't stop what's coming. Develop with knight to c3. Every piece you move adds weight to what's about to hit. Black lunges forward. Again, pawn to g4. Aggressive, overconfident. Now strike with knight to e5. Center control, pressure on g4, and eyes on their weaknesses. Suddenly queen to h4. Check. Sharp move by Black, but don't flinch. Block with pawn to g3. They think they're still winning. Black captures. F-pawn takes g3. They're smiling. Let them. Now swing your queen to g4. The whole position shifts. You're back in the fight, and they don't even know it. They try to panic push. Pawn to g2. Check. Looks scary, but stay calm. Instead of running, you capture. Queen takes h4. That threat, gone, but they go all in. Pawn promotes to queen. Let them promote. Watch what happens next. Now fire back with queen to h5. Your aim is deadly. Black tries to defend. Bishop to e7. They're setting up an escape square. Won't matter. Knight takes on f7. Pressure everywhere. The king is exposed. They respond with knight to f6, hoping to hold the line. But you break through with knight to d6. Double check. No blocks, no counters. The king has to move. Black shifts the king to d8. Desperate, vulnerable. You don't stop. Queen. To e8, check. A final challenge. Black captures, rook takes queen, and now silence. Knight to f7, smothered mate. No squares, no help. No escape, checkmate. Chess trap number 3, the queen's greed. I'll show you how to trap your opponent's queen and take control of the entire game by using her own greed against her. Start with pawn to e4. You're claiming the center like every strong opening should. Black pushes pawn to d5, trying to strike back right away. Let them. Now capture. Pawn takes d5. You're already ahead in control. Black jumps in with queen to d5, recapturing. Looks aggressive, but now comes the squeeze. Play knight to c3, attacking the queen. It's development with purpose. Now watch what they do. Black shifts their queen to a5, trying to stay active and threatening. Here comes the bait. Pawn to b4. Looks weak, but it's a trap. You want that queen to bite. Black takes it. Queen captures on b4, just what you hoped for. Now play knight to b5, attacking c7 pawn and potentially forking the king and the rook. The queen retreats, back to a5. They think they've dodged it. Now you strike. Slide your bishop to c4. That's your arrow pointed right at f7, the weakest square in their castle. Black senses the danger and plays pawn to c6, but it's too late. Fire the shot, bishop captures on f7, check. King takes bishop. Now roll in your queen to h5, check. Pressure's building fast. Black tries to block it, pawn to g6. But their position is falling apart. Now jump in with knight to d6, check. Bold, beautiful, and bait again. Black thinks they've got you. E-pawn captures knight. But this is it. Now calmly reach across the board and take their queen. Queen captures queen on a5. Boom. Just like that, you're up a queen. Your pieces are flowing, and their king is dancing in the open. The game's not over, but their chances are. Chess trap number 4, the Petrov punishment. Let me show you how to win with black, using sharp development, bold sacrifices, and a checkmate that comes out of nowhere. White begins with pawn to e4. Solid, standard, confident. You answer with pawn to e5, meeting strength with strength. White follows with knight to f3, putting pressure on your pawn. Now play knight to f6. This is the Petrov. Defense, quiet, respectable. But what comes next? Not so polite. White lunges forward, knight captures on e5. Let them take. They're walking into it. Now bring out your knight to c6, challenging the intruder. White keeps capturing. Knight. Takes knight on c6. You recapture with d-pawn, takes c6. That's center. It's yours now. White develops with knight to c3, keeping the tempo up. Now mirror them. Bishop to c5. Your eyes? Fixed on f2. White plays bishop to c4, trying to stay even. Now unleash knight to g4. This is the pressure point. You're aiming straight at the heart, f2. White castles. They think they're safe. They're not. Play queen to h4. That's not just a threat, it's a warning. White gets nervous. Pawn to h3, chasing your knight. Now go for it. Knight captures on f2. White plays queen to f3, trying to cover everything. You don't stop. Knight takes on h3, double check. White slides the king to h1, hoping it's far enough. But you chase it down. Knight to f2, double check again. This king, cornered. White plays king to g1. Now finish it. Queen to h1, checkmate. The king is boxed in. No help, no hope. You played calm. You played clean, and then you crushed them. Chess trap number 5, the queen's silent strike. Let me show you a fast and deadly checkmate you can play as black. It's built on pressure, sacrifice, and one devastating queen move that ends it all. White starts with pawn to e4. Clean, confident, expected. You match with pawn to e5, claiming the center for yourself. Then comes knight to f3, going after your pawn. You calmly defend knight to c6, solid. Now bishop to b5. The Spanish opening? Familiar territory? But you answer with knight to f6, inviting the attack and quietly building pressure. White castles kingside. They feel safe, let them. Now strike knight to g4. You're done playing quiet. White doesn't like it. They play pawn to h3, trying to push you back. But you don't run. You push h5 instead, adding fuel to the fire. White captures. Pawn takes g4. They think they've won material. Now recapture with h-pawn. Look at that file. Open, hungry. White plays knight to h2. Maybe trying to defend. Maybe trying to slow you down. Too late. Slide your queen to h4. The threat is real, and it's growing fast. White throws pawn to f3, hoping to clog the lines. You don't blink. You fire back. Pawn to g3. That king? Nowhere to run. White panics. Knight to g4. Thinking if you play queen h2, check they will capture your queen with the knight. But now comes the silence before the strike. Queen to h1, checkmate. The king is paralyzed. The pawns are frozen. And the board silently screams. You played the setup. You took the hits. And then you ended it with one move. Chess trap number 6, the greedy queen trap. Let me show you how you pulled off a smart and sneaky trick that won White's queen early in the game. Yes, you gave up a bishop, but what you got back? Way more valuable. It started when White pushed pawn to d4, trying to take control of the center like most players do. But you answered with pawn to e5. That move surprised them. It looked like you just gave them a free pawn. So they grabbed it. Pawn takes e5. But you didn't panic. You played bishop to c5, bringing your piece out fast and aiming it straight at their king's side. Next, White played knight to f3, just trying to develop normally. That's when you added pressure. Pawn to d6, challenging their pawn and asking, "Are you really sure about this?" White decided to keep capturing. Pawn takes on d6. Now, here's where your plan kicked in. You played knight to e7, calmly offering them another target. They couldn't resist. Pawn takes knight on e7, thinking they're still ahead. But now, it's your turn to surprise them. You played bishop takes on f2, check. The king has no choice, king takes bishop. And that's when you drop the hammer, queen to d1. Boom, their queen is gone. And you're in control of the board. Nice trap. Chess trap number 7, the f6 disaster. Let me show you how one bad move, just one, can destroy Black in a matter of minutes. It all begins the moment they play pawn to f6. Now follow me, and I'll walk you through the punishment. Start strong, pawn to e4. You're taking control from the very first move. Black plays pawn to e5, standard stuff. You develop with knight to f3, putting pressure right away. Then Black slips. Pawn to f6 looks harmless, but it's a trap they just walked into themselves. Now strike knight captures on e5. They fall for it. Pawn takes knight. Don't slow down. Bring your queen to h5. Check. You're in. They block with pawn to g6, but that just opens more holes. Now take back control. Queen captures on e5. Check again. Black blocks with queen to e7, hoping to stay alive. You don't wait. You capture on h8. Boom. Rook's gone. Position shattered. But what if Black doesn't block with the queen? What if they try to run? Let's break it down. Black plays king to e7 instead of blocking. You answer with queen takes on e5. Check. King runs again to f7. Now bring your bishop to c4. Check. Black tries to wall up with pawn to d5. Don't. Hesitate. Bishop takes d5. Check. They scramble. Bishop to e6. Too late. Queen takes on e6. Checkmate. Clean. Clinical. Cold-blooded. Variation 2. The side shuffle. After queen takes on e5 and king to f7, you play bishop to c4. Check again. Now the king slips to g6. You tighten the grip. Queen to f5 check. King hides on h6. Now pawn to d4 check with the bishop. You're building for the final crush. Black panics. With pawn to g5. You answer with pawn to h4. They throw out a bishop. Too little, too late. You capture. Pawn takes on g5 double check. King to g7, and now queen to f7 checkmate. The trap was set the moment they touched f6. And you turned that slip into a masterpiece. Chess trap number 8, the bishop's final blow. Watch closely, because this trap begins with normal moves and ends with a bishop slicing straight through the king's defense. You start with pawn to e4, solid, classic, Black. Answers with pawn to e5, standard setup. Now bring out your bishop to c4, aiming early at the soft spot on f7. Black plays knight to f6, developing quickly and attacking your pawn. You follow with knight to f3, backing up your center. Suddenly, Black strikes. Knight takes on e4. Greedy. Overconfident, you respond with knight to c3, putting pressure back on the intruder. But Black doesn't stop. Knight captures on c3. You recapture with the d-pawn. Black moves pawn to d6. This is part of the trap. Now castle kingside. Your king is safe, but the game is just getting started. Black continues with bishop to g4, pinning your knight. Time to flip the board. Knight captures on e5. You're hitting back. Black gets bold. Bishop takes queen on d1. They think they're winning. Now it's time. Bishop to f7, check. The king is forced. King to e7. Now finish it. Bishop to g5, checkmate. There's no escape. The king is frozen. And the trap? Perfectly executed. Chess trap number 9, King's Gambit, the all-in attack. Next one is an aggressive openings, the King's Gambit. It's fast, it's risky, and if your opponent plays into your hands, you're going to love what happens next. You open the game with pawn to e4. Right away, you're claiming the center. Black answers with pawn to e5, a balanced start. Now go bold, pawn to f4. This is the King's Gambit. You're offering a pawn, not as a gift, but as bait. Black accepts it, pawn takes f4. They think you're being reckless. You develop knight to f3, immediately putting pressure back on. Black protects with pawn to g5, holding onto that pawn like it's gold. Now you play bishop to c4, eyeing f7 like a laser. Your pieces are lining up. Black pushes again, pawn to g4 coming after your knight. Don't blink. Castle kingside. You're safe and ready to strike. Now comes the exchange. g4 takes. Knight on f3. No hesitation, queen to f3. Black develops their queen to f6, trying to hold everything together. Now shift the balance, pawn to e5 attacking the queen. Blowing open the center, Black captures, queen takes, e5. And now, the moment you've built toward, bishop to f7. Check. Black takes, king captures bishop. Don't stop. Pawn to d4, claiming more space. Black answers with queen takes d4, thinking they outsmart you, delivering a check. You stay calm. Block with bishop to e3. They grab again. Queen takes bishop, thinking the pawn can just take. You recapture. Queen takes on e3. The black pawn cannot capture your queen because it's pinned by the rook. Now pause. Look at the board. White is fully developed. King is tucked away. Black's king? Exposed. Fragile. Queens are off, but you're the one holding the pressure. What if black gets greedy? Let's rewind. Same setup, same storm. But this time, black gets clever. Or so they think. Instead, black plays queen to b2, going after your rook. Looks tempting, doesn't it? But now, you flip the game on them. Queen to f4 check. Check. Surprise. Black scrambles, queen to f6, blocking. You shift again, queen to c4 check. Every square is a problem for them. Black plays pawn to d5, hoping to block everything at once. But now comes the thunder. Rook captures the queen on f6. Black recaptures. Knight takes on f6. Their king? No cover. Their pieces? Stretched thin. You're pressing, you're active, and you're calling the shots. In both lines, the message is the same. King's Gambit isn't just chaos. It's calculated destruction. When played right, it's not a gamble. It's a warning. And your opponent won't see it coming. Chess trap number 10, the 6-move bird breakdown. White opens with pawn to f4, the bird opening. It's aggressive, offbeat, and aims to seize control of the king side. But you're not backing down. You strike right away with pawn to e5, challenging their idea from move 1. White captures your pawn. F takes e5. Now they hold the center, but they've left their king side dangerously exposed. You see the weakness and play pawn to d6, targeting their center immediately. They take again. e5 takes d6, but that's exactly what you wanted. You recapture with bishop to d6. Now your bishop is active and slicing, straight through the diagonal, eyeing their king's position. They try to develop with knight to c3, but now comes the trap. Queen to h4, check. They try to cover it up with pawn to g3, but you're already in deep. Queen takes g3, check again. They panic and take your queen h, pawn takes g3, thinking they've stopped the attack. But then you drop the hammer. Bishop to g3, checkmate. 6 brutal moves. That's all it took. You lured them in with one tempting pawn, punished their overreach, and sealed the game with surgical precision. Even against tricky openings like the bird, you showed why black doesn't just defend, they dominate. Chess trap number 11, Scandinavian shutdown in 6 moves. Let me show you a sneaky little trap that ends the game fast. It happens in the Scandinavian defense. And it finishes with a bishop checkmate that your opponent will never see coming. Start with pawn to e4, a powerful, classic opening. Black responds with pawn to d5. That's the Scandinavian defense. Bold, but beatable. Develop your knight to f3, eyeing that pawn. Black takes, pawn captures on e4. Let them. Now jump in with knight to e5, you're aiming straight at the center and toward danger. Black tries to stop you with pawn to f6, but that move, that's the mistake you've been waiting for. Now fire, queen to h5, check. Black scrambles, pawn to g6. It looks like they've defended, but they've only opened the gates. Now place your bishop on c4, calmly aiming straight at f7, black thinks. They've got you, pawn takes, queen on h5. But they've walked into the trap. Now unleash it, bishop to f7, checkmate. The king is sealed in. No squares, no help. Game over in just 6 moves? Chess trap number 12, the Dutch defense disaster. I'm going to show you how to sacrifice your queen and still win the game in just 5 moves. Let's break down this brutal mini trap in the Dutch defense. You start with pawn to d4, staking your claim on the center. Black replies with pawn to f5. This is the Dutch defense. Aggressive but dangerous. Now play pawn to e4. This is the Staunton gambit. You're offering a pawn for fast momentum. Black accepts. If pawn takes on e4, let them. Now swing your queen to h5. Check. Black panics. Pawn to g6. So you quietly slide your bishop to e2. Looks calm? Looks passive. But it's not. Black gets greedy. Pawn captures queen on h5. And now the trap snaps shut. Bishop to h5. Checkmate. The king is locked in. The board is silent. White wins, short but elegant. Chess trap number 13, the king that never came home. I'm going to show you a wild trap where black's king goes on a long, dangerous walk and never makes it back. It all starts with one bold move. Knight sacrifices itself on f7. Let's break down the main line. Then I'll show you a brutal variation that ends just as fast. You begin with pawn to e4, strong and standard. Black answers with pawn to e5, solid. You play knight to f3, building quickly. Black mirrors with knight to c6. Now strike, pawn to d4, challenge. The center directly. Black accepts, pawn takes on d4, bring your knight to g5. It looks aggressive because it is. Black plays pawn to h6, trying to chase you away. But you don't back down, knight takes on f7. A stunning sacrifice. Black king takes knight. You follow up fast, bishop to c4, check. Black moves the king to e8, trying to hide. Now swing in with queen to h5, check. Black blocks with pawn to g6. Queen takes on g6, check. No time to breathe. Black runs, king to e7. You strike with queen to f7, check. King stumbles to d6. You play bishop to f4, check again. Black runs to c5. You chase with queen to d5, check. King slips to b6. Now deliver the final blow. Queen to b5, checkmate. The king is trapped. What if the king steps wrong? Let's rewind. After you bishop to f4, check. Black blocks with knight to e5, trying to stop the bleeding. You don't flinch, queen to d5, check. King slides back to e7. And now the hammer. Queen takes on e5, checkmate. Boom. Even with a knight in the way, it wasn't enough. You sacrificed a knight. You chased the king across the board. And you finished it in style. Another masterclass trap, wrapped in 9 moves. Chess trap number 14. Petrov's punishment. Queen checkmate as black. I'm going to show you how to flip the script in the Petrov defense. You'll lure white in, crack open their king side, and land a queen checkmate they never saw coming. Let's go move by move. White begins with pawn to e4. You respond with pawn to 5, standard and solid. White plays knight to f3. You counter with knight to f6, entering the Petrov defense. Now white grabs. Knight takes pawn on e5. Don't blink. You calmly play knight to c6, bringing in the pressure. White trades knight takes knight, and you recapture with d-pawn. Takes knight on c6. Now your center is strong and flexible. White tries to settle with pawn to d3. You strike with bishop to c5, eyeing their king side. White develops. Bishop to e2 and preparing to castle. You slide in with pawn to h5, launching your attack. They castle kingside, thinking they're safe. But you've already set the trap. Knight to g4. White plays pawn to h3, hoping to chase your knight. You ignore the threat. Queen to d6. Your queen is locked and loaded. They fall for it. Pawn takes knight on. h4. You recapture. h-pawn. Takes on g4. That file is wide open now. They panic. Pawn to g3, trying to seal the leak and block the queen's diagonal. But it's too late. Queen takes on g3. Checkmate, the pawn is pinned with the bishop. Game over. If white plays safe, let's rewind to move 9. Instead of taking your knight, white plays pawn to g3. You don't stop? Queen captures on g3 again. It's pinned with the bishop so white cannot take your queen. White tucks the king away. King to h1. You strike again. Queen to h2. Checkmate, no matter which path they choose. Your queen finds the checkmate. From the Petrov defense to a full-on kingside ambush, black turns defense into domination. If you want a deeper explanation about this chess trap, comment chess trap and subscribe to see this in the next following videos.